Well, only a few days remain until we get some playoff football. If you're like me, you've been poring over these wild card weekend games over the last couple of days. It's always the way it seems to work in the NFL playoffs. We only have a few games every week, so we end up looking and re-looking at the games. Maybe doing a bit of overanalyzation, but that's natural. It's tough to avoid. You have your first instinct, you go back, you look again, question yourself, think, what might I be missing? What might I be overlooking? Sometimes that process is helpful. Other times, maybe not so much. But that process definitely involves considering some of the gray area things surrounding these games and sports in general. Things like momentum and motivation. Is this stuff real? I for one think sports bettors put a little too much stock in motivation. A lot of times you'll see games where one team really needs it and the other team not so much. Maybe one team desperately needs a game to get in the playoffs. Last week's San Diego-Kansas City game, a prime example, must-win situation for the Chargers. The Chiefs didn't even play all their starters. Chiefs, of course, nearly won that game. Ryan Suckup missing a 41-yard field goal at the end of regulation that would have won them that game. And, I'm just not sure that during the games, on a play-to-play basis, if you could go inside each player's head, not sure players on the team that really need the game, not sure they're thinking during the play, well, we really need this game, so let's put a little something extra in here. Or not sure the other team is thinking, we don't need this game quite as much, so we won't try quite as hard as we normally would. I just don't think that's the way it works. But sports bettors, and I've fallen into the trap as well. A lot of times we love to bet on that team that really needs the game, or the team that has revenge going for them. The team that has lost to the other team a couple of times. And boy, the players must really want this one badly. Certainly this Green Bay-San Francisco game falls under that category. Green Bay has lost to San Francisco the last two times they've played, and they've been big games, particularly 2 times ago in last season's playoffs. It ended Green Bay's season. The game was not competitive. And then again, week 1 of this season, that game was more competitive, but the Niners pulling out a win again. The Green Bay defense has not been able to stop San Francisco the last 2 times they've seen them. So in looking at this San Francisco-Green Bay game this weekend, and the Niners are a 2.5-point favorite on BETDAQ, 48 is the total, my initial instinct is to back San Francisco. Not only because they've been better than Green Bay the last 2 times they've faced them, but they've been better than the Packers this season, especially over the second half of the season. Now, I know a lot of that has to do with Aaron Rodgers' injury. Rodgers, of course, missing 7 games, and he is back now. But I don't think he's quite in mid-season form yet. He looked pretty good against Chicago last week, but threw a couple of interceptions. I don't trust him quite as much as I would if he hadn't missed 7 games, for example. And the Green Bay defense has been brutal over the second half of the year. The Niners, meanwhile, have improved over the course of the season. The only weakness, I guess, is the passing game. They're still lagging a little behind in that area, 31st in the NFL in pass yards per game, but that excellent defense, their offense still good as a whole, based around the power running game. My point is San Francisco has been clearly better than Green Bay this season. The game is in Green Bay, but have a feeling a lot of people who like the Packers in this situation. And the reason I've had a little bit of trouble getting on board with the San Francisco play is because of motivation, is because of one of those gray area things. You think, well, Packers players, do they have professional pride? They've lost 2 times in a row to this team. Last year they ended their season. Now they're a home underdog against this team. And I think it's easy to go in that direction and think, wow, the Packers aren't going to lose 3 times in a row to the Niners. They're at home. Aaron Rodgers is back. All the momentum, there's the momentum thing. Certainly the momentum they got from Rodgers returning, the dramatic win over the Chicago Bears last week. We'll see. We'll see if that matters at all in this game. I tend to think that even if Green Bay ends up winning, it won't be because their players really wanted it more. I think once this game is kicked off, on a play-to-play basis, if a Green Bay offensive lineman is blocking a San Francisco defensive lineman, I don't think that offensive lineman is going to have any sort of edge because the Packers have lost 2 games in a row. And that sounds so obvious, it almost seems silly saying it, but we as sports bettors, we're a little ridiculous sometimes, and that's the type of thing that we tend to think about. And looking at this San Francisco-Green Bay game, that's part of it in handicapping the game, thinking about the motivational aspects. I'll just caution you not to put too much into that. Maybe caution myself, sort of not to put too much into that this weekend, because, as I said, just not sure if that's real. Same's true with momentum, how teams are playing heading into the playoffs. We always say, well, look for the hot team heading into the playoffs. Should we be, though? The Baltimore Ravens last season lost 4 of their final 5 regular season games. They, of course, went on to win the Super Bowl. When we look at Saturday's two games, both of them, clear cases of teams with momentum facing teams that do not have any momentum. The Indianapolis Colts have been playing extremely well lately. They've won 3 in a row, 4 out of their last 5. The Kansas City Chiefs have not been playing well. They lost 4 of their final 6 games to end the season. And hey, you could have some motivation. In addition to momentum, you could have some motivation factor in this game as well, because the Chiefs lost at home just a couple of weeks ago to the Indianapolis Colts. So people who put a lot of stock in this type of thing, you might think, well, the Chiefs should be more motivated because they just lost to the Colts. But then you say, well, the Colts have all the momentum. They've been playing well. Kansas City has been stumbling towards the finish here this season. But again, I'm just not sure that's really going to matter once the game is kicked off. The Colts have been playing well lately, no doubt about it. And the fact that they did beat Kansas City, to me, what that should tell us is this Indianapolis defense has a plan to stop the Kansas City offense. They held the Chiefs to just 7 points in that game. And it's not like Kansas City had anything locked up at that point. They were trying their hardest to win the game, so it's not like they held anything back. So I do think we can take something from that game, but I don't think we can take from it that Kansas City is more motivated to win after losing. Just like I don't think we should say, hey, Indianapolis has been playing so much better over the last month and a half than the Chiefs. We should look at them in this situation. I think we should try as best we can to handicap this game in a vacuum, so to speak. Try to look at how these two teams match up with each other. And obviously the game a couple of weeks ago will factor into that. As we said, this Colts defense, which has played very well over the second half of the season, really locked down the Chiefs in that game. But I have a feeling that Jamal Charles might get on track here a little bit. Indianapolis has struggled against the run this season. We'll see if they're able to duplicate their performance of a couple of weeks ago and smother that Chiefs offense, hold them to a point total like 7 or anything around there. You look at the other one of Saturday's games, also a case where one team has momentum, the other team doesn't. Philadelphia Eagles have won 7 of their last 8 games. They really have it rolling, coming off of that feel-good win over the Dallas Cowboys. What a great way to end the season. They're facing the New Orleans Saints. The Saints lost 3 of their final 5 regular season games. Just a month ago, they were the leading contender for the 2nd seed in the NFC, which would have meant a bye in the first round of the playoffs and a home playoff game, which is very important for a team like New Orleans. You see the Eagles only a 2.5-point favorite on BETDAQ, 54.5 the total there. And I think a lot of people, based on the way these teams have looked over the last month, they're going to find it tough to turn away from the Philadelphia side. They say Philadelphia has been playing so well, and look at New Orleans. New Orleans has been stumbling a bit. But again, I think it would be wise to look at this game and don't even think about whether or not these teams have won their 5 or 6 games heading into this. I'm not saying that's not important. Certainly, it's important that a team is playing well or well enough heading into the postseason, even though, again, last year's Baltimore Ravens team could argue with you there. But I think we should just evaluate this game based on the matchups of Philadelphia offense going against that New Orleans defense that has struggled a bit against the run this season, and we know how well the Eagles run the ball. And Drew Brees and that New Orleans offense going up against the Philadelphia defense that ranks 32nd, dead last in pass defense. Obviously going to be a high-scoring game here with a total like 54.5. That is to be expected. And look, to be honest with you, I haven't decided for sure which way I'm going on any of these games. I do have definite leans on 3 of them, but I've questioned myself plenty over the last couple of days because of some of the things we've talked about here, because of factors like momentum and motivation, especially that Green Bay-San Francisco game. Even saying that I believe, and I do believe, that people put too much stock into things like motivation. You know, the Packers want the game more because they've lost 2 in a row to the Niners. I think people give that stuff way too much credit. It's still tough to not give it some credit. I mean, it's easy to say that, but tough not to act on it a little bit. So we'll see what decisions we come to over the next couple of days. I wish you best of luck in your efforts handicapping these games. Should be 4 good ones. I have a sneaking feeling that one of the 3 2.5-point favorites is going to win but not cover. Got to figure out which one. Plenty of work to do over the next couple of days on these next 4 games. Really looking forward to Wild Card Weekend. It's my favorite weekend of the NFL season, quite frankly. So, hey, it's only a few days away now. We'll be breaking down all these games in great detail here over the next couple of days on BETDAQ NFL. So we do hope you check back with us. Until then, for BETDAQ NFL, I'm John Arnette.